There's a recording. You've probably never heard it. Most people haven't. It's only 8 seconds long, and it's in Russian. But you don't need a translator to understand what's happening. You can hear the rage, the fear, the acceptance. A man is cursing, screaming at the people who sent him to die, and in 47 seconds he'll be dead. His name was Vladimir Komarov, and he knew the capsule would kill him before he ever climbed inside. This is the story of the cosmonaut who flew into a death trap to save the life of his best friend. April 1967. The Soviet Union is bleeding. Not literally, not yet. But the space race, the thing they were supposed to win, the propaganda jewel of the communist empire, is slipping through their fingers. America is closing the gap. Fast. NASA is preparing Apollo. The moon is in reach. And the Soviets know it. So the orders come down from the top. Leonid Brezhnev, General Secretary, the man who replaced Khrushchev, the man who doesn't ask questions. He gives commands. And the command is simple. Launch Soyuz 1 on April 23, 1967. Why April 23rd? Because it's May Day in a week. The 50th anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution, the biggest propaganda moment in Soviet history. Brezhnev wants 2 Soyuz capsules in orbit. He wants cosmonauts performing a spacewalk between them. He wants the world to watch Soviet superiority live on television. He wants a miracle. What he gets is a nightmare, because Soyuz 1 isn't ready, not even close. The engineers know it. The technicians know it. The cosmonauts know it. There are 203 structural problems with the spacecraft. 203. Faulty wiring, defective heat shields, unreliable parachute systems, solar panels that won't deploy, communication arrays that cut out randomly. The chief designer, a man named Vasily Mishin, receives a report, 10 pages long, every flaw documented, every risk outlined. He forwards it up the chain. It goes to Leonid Smirnov, head of the Military Industrial Commission, and Smirnov sends it to the Kremlin, to Brezhnev. The response is silence. Not approval, not acknowledgement, just silence. Because in the Soviet Union, silence means proceed, so they do. But someone has to fly it, and that's where the tragedy really begins. The mission is assigned to 2 men. Primary pilot, Vladimir Komarov. Backup pilot, Yuri Gagarin. If you don't know those names, you should. Komarov was a veteran. 2 previous space flights. Engineer. Test pilot. A man who understood machines better than most people understood themselves. And Gagarin. Gagarin was a god, the first human in space. April 12th, 1961. Vostok 1. 108 minutes that changed history. He wasn't just famous, he was untouchable, the most recognized face on Earth, the Soviet Union's greatest propaganda asset. He was also Vladimir Komarov's best friend. They trained together, flew together, their families vacationed together, and now one of them had to die. Because Gagarin was the backup. If Komarov refused the mission, if he said the spacecraft was too dangerous, if he walked away, they'd send Gagarin instead. And Komarov knew something the Kremlin didn't want to admit. Whoever flew Soyuz 1 wasn't coming back, so he made a choice. He didn't refuse. He didn't protest. He didn't appeal to his superiors or the press or anyone who might listen. He just showed up. The night before launch, Gagarin came to him. Some reports say they argued, others say they cried. Gagarin wanted to take the flight himself. He was the backup. It was his right. But Komarov refused, because if the mission failed, if the capsule crashed, if the worst happened, the Soviet Union could survive losing Komarov. They couldn't survive losing Gagarin. So Komarov climbed into Soyuz 1 knowing it was a coffin, and Gagarin watched from the ground, helpless. April 23, 1967, 6:35, A.M. Moscow. Time, launch. The rocket screams into the sky. The thrust is good. The trajectory is clean. For 90 seconds, everything works. And then it starts. The left solar panel doesn't deploy. That's problem number one. Without it, the spacecraft can't generate enough power. The batteries start draining immediately. Then the communication system fails. Ground control can only reach Komarov intermittently, sometimes for 30 seconds, sometimes not at all. He's alone up there, blind, low on power. And the mission's barely started. They try to fix it. Commands are sent. Manual overrides, emergency protocols. Nothing works. The second Soyuz, the one that was supposed to dock with Komarov, never launches. The propaganda stunt is over. Now it's just survival. But Soyuz 1 won't stabilize. It starts spinning. Slowly at first, then faster. Komarov tries everything. He fires the attitude control thrusters. He adjusts the gyroscopes. He follows every procedure in the manual. The spin doesn't stop. He's tumbling through space at 5 revolutions per minute. And he can't fire the retro rockets for re-entry until the spacecraft is stable. If you want to see more lost history revealed, more stories they tried to bury, you know what to do. But back to Komarov. 17 orbits. That's how long he fought. 17 times around the Earth, trying to stabilize a machine that was doomed from the start. Finally, on orbit 18, he gets it. Manual control. Brute force. Sheer willpower. The spacecraft steadies. He fires the retro rockets. Re-entry begins. The heat builds. The capsule shakes. The ablative shield burns away as friction tears at the hull. But he's done it. He's coming home. And then the parachute fails. The drogue chute deploys. That's the small one, the one that slows you down just enough to release the main parachute. But the main chute doesn't open. It's tangled. Twisted. A design flaw. One of the 203 problems nobody fixed. Komarov pulls the reserve. It deploys, but it tangles with the drogue. Now he has 2 parachutes wrapped around each other, and neither one is slowing him down. He's falling. 7 kilometers above the Earth. 6. 5. Ground control hears him. They hear everything. He's screaming, cursing the engineers, cursing the designers, cursing the men who sent him up in a broken machine. And then he stops. His voice goes quiet, calm. He asks them to tell his wife he loves her. 4 kilometers. 3, 2. At 7:24 a.m., Soyuz 1 impacts the ground near Orenburg in the eastern Soviet Union. The capsule is traveling at over 140 kilometers per hour when it hits. The impact triggers the solid fuel landing rockets. They're supposed to fire 1 meter above the ground to cushion the landing. Instead, they ignite on impact. The capsule explodes. When the rescue team arrives, there's nothing left but a crater and twisted metal. Komarov's remains are so badly burned, they have to identify him by dental records. He was 40 years old. The Soviet Union doesn't hide it. That's the shocking part. They could have. They'd done it before. Covered up failures. Erased cosmonauts from photographs. Rewritten history in real time. But not this time. They give Komarov a state funeral. And they do something almost unheard of in Soviet Russia. They leave the casket open. Not because they want to honor him. Because they want people to see. The charred remains. The twisted bones. The cost of cutting corners. It's a message, not to the public. To the engineers, to the bureaucrats, to everyone in the program who thought they could rush a spacecraft into orbit and hope for the best. Yuri Gagarin was there, at the funeral. He stood over his friend's casket and wept. And he spent the next year trying to get back into space, not for glory, not for the Soviet Union, to finish what Komarov started. But he never got the chance. On March 27, 1968, Gagarin died in a plane crash during a routine training flight. He was 34. Some say it was an accident. Others say the Soviet government couldn't risk losing him in space. So they grounded him. And when he pushed too hard to fly again, they made sure he couldn't. We'll never know. But here's what we do know. Vladimir Komarov's death wasn't in vain. After Soyuz 1, The Soviet space program was completely overhauled. 18 months of delays, complete redesigns, new safety protocols. The next crewed Soyuz mission, Soyuz 3, launched in October 1968. It worked. And Soyuz capsules, refined and improved over decades, are still flying today. They're the safest, most reliable spacecraft ever built. Komarov's sacrifice made that possible. But it didn't have to happen. 203 defects, 203 chances to stop, and no one did. Because the deadline mattered more than the man. That's the lesson. Not that space is dangerous. We know that. The lesson is that when you ignore the people who know what they're talking about, when you let politics override engineering, when you value spectacle over safety, people die. And sometimes, those people die knowing exactly what's coming. Komarov didn't have to fly. He chose to, because the alternative was watching his best friend burn up in his place. That's not heroism. That's love. And maybe that's the real story, not the spacecraft that failed, but the man who flew it anyway. So the next time you see a rocket launch, remember Vladimir Komarov, the cosmonaut who walked into a death trap, the man who fell from space, the friend who gave everything. And remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say no. He didn't, and the sky swallowed him whole.